It's such an honor to have you today with us here at Regents University. Please welcome to the stage.
What an introduction. Thank you so much. What a great honor it is for me to be with all of you to talk about leadership and how important your role is as young people and the opportunities that you've got before you, which are going to be significant and massive. And if you've got the right mindset, and you've got the right, what I describe as the inner core, and we'll talk about it here today. It's been my experience that if you're really, really good on the inside, and the inside is really complicated, very, very multifaceted, then good things will flow to the world and how people experience you in whole life and work and your community, nation, whatever. So it is a great privilege for me to be with all of you today and have this incredible opportunity. Let me just start by sharing maybe just a little bit of my story. Because I continue to learn, I'm 66 years old. I turned 66 a few weeks ago. And I got ignited at 55. And I want to share that story because, it's interesting. There's a lot of people that I have a chance to work with, some top CEOs who, when I get into the zone of actually building a relationship with these people, they'll admit to me that, despite their net worth, and all the cars and the houses they own, that truth be told, if they had a chance to do it over again, they wouldn't have not sought where they're being. How often that happens, and how it's more the case that people are not living their passion and living their purpose. And I really believe each and every one of you, all of us, have been put on the earth to create a masterpiece. And there are so many people who leave the earth and they have not even painted 1/10 of the masterpiece they were intended to paint. And so I consider the work that I do very humble to help people become the best that they can be. Period, end of story. Non-negotiable. So a little background on me. I am of Italian descent. The Mattone family left Italy many years ago, in the late 1800s. Both sides. One side from Salerno, Italy. The other side from the Capri. And they landed in Brooklyn, New York in the late 1800s. I grew up outside of New York in New Jersey. My dad was Dominic Mattone. He was a career Air Force guy. Here's a guy who I miss him. He died in 1997 on my birthday, actually. And my dad was my hero. My mother was too. Well, my dad taught me so much about just working hard. Just working hard. And he was a really smart guy. Really, really smart. But back then, he grew up in Brooklyn. He had 5 brothers and sisters. And he didn't really have the opportunity. He really could have gone to any university. He was that smart. But he didn't do that. He went right into the Air Force, and he spent 32 years. And he went all the way to the top. And he retired as Chief Master Sergeant enlisted. And there were generals in the United States Air Force, officers, who would show incredible respect to my dad. I'm never going to forget it, because I used to go see my dad speak. My dad was a really good speaker. And I remember at a young age going to see him, and I would get chills, saying, he's so bad. I think I had some of my dad, honestly. But I moved to Massachusetts when I was 11 years old. And that's pretty much where I grew up. And I met a girl at 15. She's my wife. We've been married 44 years. Round of applause. I used to sit behind her in history class, and I never dated another girl, ever. I was good she dated another guy. So anyway, we got married at 21. She is a registered nurse who just retired. An amazing, the pillar of our life. In our family. And so she's special, and she had an incredible career as a registered nurse. And so I went to Babson College. I don't know if some of you have heard of Babson. Babson's a pretty good school in the business arena. Actually, really, really good in entrepreneurial studies. That's where I went to school. I graduated in 1978. Went on for a master's degree in industrial organizational psychology. Eventually got a PhD in industrial organizational psychology. Got out of graduate school, got my first job at an insurance company called Liberty Mutual. How many of you have heard of Liberty Mutual? Okay, see a couple hands going up. That was my first job, and I worked there for a couple years. And then I went to an oil company called Conoco, big oil company. And I worked for them for like 5 years. And I'm never going to forget this, how important mentors are to all of us. So I want you to think about that as you go through life, how important it's going to be for each and every one of you to establish not one mentor, but multiple mentors. You know what I'm saying? People you can go to for help. You cannot navigate the complexity of life alone. Would you agree with that? It's too complicated, right? We really do need to lock our arms, our minds, and our hearts together. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Do not be afraid to ask for help. Be proud to ask for help as you progress in your life. So, I met my first mentor, a gentleman by the name of Lou Larson. Lou's an older guy. And I was so excited about this Conoco opportunity because I wanted to teach and train. But I'm only like 25, 26 years old. I figured there's no way Lou was going to take a risk on me. I don't have any experience. And I want to teach courses on leadership. I don't know anything about leadership. And I'm never going to forget Lou Larson. Never forget him. He looked at me and said, John, there's something about you. It's a little bit of a risk for me to do this, but I believe in you. I believe in you. I'm going to give you the opportunity to teach classes. Think about this. 25 years old, and I'm teaching classes at Conoco to managers. Think about that. So, how did I do it? I don't know how I did it. But I did it. And all I ever remember was, people love my classes. I don't even know what came out of my mouth. I really don't. I'm being honest with you. But I do know something. I was passionate. And everybody who was in my class said, this guy, we've got to listen to this guy. And then my confidence grew. And it kept on growing. And then I had a chance to speak to the senior executive team of Conoco. 28, 29 years old. And I was really, really nervous. But I fought it. And I did a speech, and I remember the senior executive team of Conoco saying to me, you should actually go speak like all over the world. You're really good. And I was humbled to hear this. And I started to think, maybe I can be like Tony Robbins, just do that kind of stuff. I went home to my wife, Gail, and I said, what do you think? She said, about what? I said, I want to start my own speaking business, and I want to travel. And we got 2 little kids at the time. So we got four kids, now adults. We had 5 grandchildren. And she wasn't all that excited about this because I was giving up the early part of my career. And I went against her wishes. I started my first company at age 30, and I want to be very honest with you, I was not that successful. Actually, in many respects, I was pretty much a failure, to be quite honest with all of you. Those 10 years were really, really tough. And they were tough because I would hop on airplanes on Sundays. I'd be gone the whole week, anywhere. And I would miss birthdays. And I would miss athletic events. My kids played in sports and all of that stuff. I missed all of that, all of it. And it started to wear on me. And then, about 5-6 years into it, the bank account didn't look good. To the point where there was really no money. And I realized, boy, this thing's not working. So I go to New York, and I resigned myself to the fact that it's over. I'm gonna have to get a job. I gotta get a job now. I gotta support my family. I have 4 kids. So I take the stage in New York City, and I'm delivering this speech. I'm never gonna forget this. In the front row, there were 4 executives looking at me kind of strange, saying, who are you? They approached me at the end of the speech. They said, John, great speech. We are the executive team from Master Media, which doesn't exist anymore. It's a publishing company. It was a publishing company. It was actually pretty good. And they said, let's go to dinner because, we'd like to offer you a book contract. Okay? Immediately I said, I'm going to be rich. I've arrived, And I remember calling Gail saying, guess what? You would not believe what happened. We got a book deal. She said, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? So, make a long story short, they came to me. Now, my background's IO psychology. We've got some people in here psychology. Okay, we've got quite a few. So industrial organization was very measurement oriented, a lot of statistics, and I loved all that stuff. So the publishing company says, have you heard of the Enneagram before? Enneagram. Greek word, Ennea, 9, gram, map, right? So I looked at these people, I said, never heard of this. What are you talking about? Never heard of the Enneagram before. And they said, you should do the research on it because we think that you can be the first person ever to write a book applying the Enneagram, very deep psychological model and principles and so on. So very deep, very deep. And let me tell you what, I got excited with that. I could be the first person to write a book applying the Enneagram to leadership. It took me 2 years to write the book. The book came out in 1997. The book was called Success Yourself. It was not a success. Very, very few copies sold. Anybody want to guess how many copies? Take a guess. You won't offend me. Yeah. How many? 40,000. Way too high. 10,000 too high. 4,000 too high.
700.
Way too high. You said 10. You said 10. 0. You need to ask for it. We got to escort this guy out. He says, I know I was kidding, but I'm very deeply offended. What's your name? So, that's pretty close. Actually, 3 books sold. Okay? And you know who bought them? My mother. My mother bought the books. She guilty to buy a book. So let me tell you what, it was a disaster. It was an absolute disaster. And to make matters worse, the publishing company calls me 4 weeks later and said, we have a disaster. I said, I already know we have a disaster. They said, we got bad news. I said, we already got the bad news. They said, no, the bad news just got worse. I said, what's the bad news? They said, we're out of business. You put us out of business. True story. True story. True story. So now my wife says, okay, what are we going to do with all the books? Right? So the publishing company says, we got 5,000 books reprinted. 5,000. What do we do with them? Gail says, you ship them to my house. And when they show up, we're going to go to the dump and we're going to throw every single one out. We're going to close the chapter. We're going to close the chapter. True story. So the book showed up. We went to the dump and we threw out every single book. I looked at her and I said, can I hold one of them? Just one. I gotta have one. She said, you can have one. True story. Put it in the bookshelf. And that's it. Chapter end. I went back in the corporate world before. I took a number of positions, primarily in the world of consulting. I was a senior partner, I was president of a consulting firm, and my career was going very, very well, from 40 to 55. Money was good, building a nest egg, and I get a phone call in 2010 from Apple Computer. We had answering machines back then. I don't even think there were cell phones back then. I don't even remember. But there was a message on your answering machine from Apple that Steve Jobs wanted to meet me. Steve Jobs in 2010, 1 year before he died. I'm going to share a couple things with you. Everybody knows Steve Jobs, right? Okay, let me tell you about what happened, because about a year before he died of pancreatic cancer, ravaging cancer. He was doing a lot of reading, a lot of soul searching, trying to connect the dots, trying to figure stuff out. He goes into a bookstore in Cupertino, California, and he notices a book called Success Yourself in the bookshelf. Pulls it out. He says, this is interesting. He reads the book. He likes the book. In the back of the book was an assessment that I created called the Mattone Leadership Enneagram Inventory that now is used all over the world. We have 15,000 leaders in the database, and the top CEOs in the world have taken the MBA. In the back of the book was the first iteration of that assessment. It was, think about this one, paper and pencil. He actually completed the MLEI in the back of the book with a pencil. And it had self-scoring in the back. Okay? He did not like his score. He did not like his score. He liked the book. But you know what? It generated curiosity. So, in 2010, I still am running a consulting firm. He invited me out. I had 5 coaching sessions with Steve Jobs about a year before he died. Not nearly the kind of coaching that I do these days. Because I really didn't know enough. A lot's evolved in the last 10 years. And I'll share a little bit more about my interactions with him. I will tell all of you. He was a really courageous soul. He had a lot of pain, but he always showed up at work. You know, he always showed up at work. He was really a man of courage. You know what I'm saying? Like courageous deep within his soul. He was, in many respects, an animal from the standpoint of non-negotiable. Non-negotiable. And by the way, that's something I want you to think about as you progress in life, that, you know, if you really want to get stuff out of you and achieve all that you're capable of achieving, you've got to be professional about stuff, but you've got to go after it, big time. You know what I'm saying? Like a passionate, diligent focus, non-negotiable. I can't tell you how many top leaders in the world that I've been humbled to work with. That's the biggest commonality. As I lead these meetings, I say, it's unbelievable, these people. It makes so much sense why they're successful. It makes so much sense. They just want it. And by the way, the best leaders, they don't want it selfishly, okay? They do not want it selfishly. The best leaders in the world are people who want to bring abundance to the world. You know what I'm saying? They want to touch hearts, minds, and souls of others. Whether it's at work, family, it doesn't matter. It's not a selfish pursuit. And that was a big discovery for me at 55 years old. 55. So the Steve Jobs thing was amazing. And again, I'll share a little bit more with all of you in a second, but it was months later. I love to work out. I try to stay in shape. And I'm running around a track in Orlando, which is where my wife and I live, Orlando, Florida. And I'm running around this track, and I got to the second time around, and literally stopped in my tracks, and I got chills. And I describe it to all of you as a calling. I don't know if some of you believe in this stuff. I don't know, maybe some of you have experienced it before, but I will share with you I did. And with the calling, there were two things that were really, really important for me. One was, I got chills, okay? I had goosebumps. And then I heard a message, and the message went like this: you must go back and do what you were put on the earth to do. Those are the words that I heard. I called my wife, Gail. I said, you wouldn't believe what happened. I just had a call. I said, I want to go back and do what I was put on the earth to do. I'm just going to do that this time. You know what she said? You have my permission. Just make sure you don't mess it up. It was 11 years ago. 11. I can tell you, many of my friends and colleagues, when I told them what I was going to do, I was doing very well in the corporate world. They said, "What are you, crazy? What are you doing?" I said, "I'm going to do it." And I did it. So what did I do the next day? Maybe some of you have experienced this before when you're inspired. I couldn't be contained. Literally could not be contained. I knew the answer. You know what the answer was? I had to get my messages out in the world. I said, I got to start writing books. I woke up the next day and I penned a bestseller. I don't know where it came from. And it took me a year to write it. It was called Talent Leadership. It came out in 2012. I felt possessed. I even created a website. And I don't know anything about any of this stuff. How many people in this room have experienced when you feel the energy and the passion, right? It's very difficult to contain. See some hands, right? You want a bottle? right? Listen, I'm still on this, okay, 11 years later. I'm driven. What am I driven about? Well, what I'm driven about is my realization at 55, what leadership was. I was selfish. I was very, very selfish my whole life. I would always consider myself a good husband. I was a very good professional. I was a good father. But I want to be honest with all of you, I was not the best that I could be. And it was very clear that I had a lot of room to grow. And so my realization was, man, I've been deluding myself for 55 years. And my delusion was this. I actually thought my life was about me. No, it's not. I thought at 55 that my life's journey was about me. And when I realized I was wrong, my life changed. You know what I realized? That we're put on the earth, none of us. None of us. None of you are on the earth. Interesting, isn't it? We were all put on the earth to move the world in a positive direction. All of us. Every single human being who's on the earth has a purpose, has a masterpiece that absolutely non-negotiable must be painted. So when I wake up every single day, I continue to try to paint a masterpiece in my personal life, not because of me. Because ultimately, you all know masterpieces, right? Masterpieces are enjoyed by future generations. Future generations. So when I'm gone, at some point, my hope is, my legacy is that my children and children's children, my grandchildren, they kind of look at the impact that I had from the standpoint of this guy made a big difference in my life. That's what I'm driven about, and that's what leadership is. That's what leadership is. And listen, I got to tell you, we got a lot of leaders out there who are delusional. They actually think the journey's about them. It's not. It is about touching hearts, minds, and souls. There's nothing wrong with personal success. You know what I'm saying? Go after it. Go after it. Go after your personal achievement, accomplish everything that you want to accomplish. But the overarching goal is to move the needle in a positive way in the world. That's what he says. And that was my realization. It took me 55 years to learn a really important lesson. So I take nothing for granted, ever. And when I coach executives, government leaders, athletes, I try to share that mentality. And usually I'm pretty successful in getting them to see what it is that we're talking about. Because ultimately, you all know this, right? It's not about what you think. We got too many people running around thinking. We have an overabundance of thinking. We have an overabundance of intellect. Interesting, isn't it? There's a lot of IQ in this room. A lot of IQ. I will tell you that I was at a board meeting this morning. I sat there and I was in awe. I said, boy, these people are smart people. How many people in this room have said, boy, they're smart, right? We got a lot of smart people running around. There's no question intellect's a predictor. The cognitive strength of a human being is a predictor, ultimately, right? But there's a stronger correlation between success, achievement, abundance, touching hearts, minds, and souls, related to two things that we're in short supply of. Heart, and soul. The greatest leaders in the world understand Those are the leading indicators. Heart, mind, and soul. Those are the leading indicators that ultimately determine success. For an individual, for a team, for an organization, for a family. So, kind of an interesting journey, actually. So I want all of you to know, it is a deep privilege for me to be here. This is wonderful. I'm looking at a lot of our future. You guys are our future. And there's no question that you're going to accomplish incredible things in your life. A lot of your success is going to be tied to your inner core. Your inner core. And when I talk about inner core, I talk about things like, how do you view yourself? What is your self-concept? You know, when you really think about yourself, is your self-concept, do you have an overactive ego, right? And there's a lot of executives out there who have an overactive ego. Narcissism. The other end of the continuum is people who don't believe in themselves. We've got to achieve balanced ego. How do you do that? You do it by making certain decisions, and I want to talk about that with all of you tonight. So here I am. Wrote that book, Talent Leadership. That book did very well. Woo, man. My wife's saying, keep it going, just keep it going. And then I decide, hey, you know that book, Success Yourself, that sold 3 copies? I'm going to rewrite that book. Because I knew there was good stuff in it. And I did. I rewrote the book, 2013. That book was called Intelligent Leadership, which is pretty much what I'm known for. Intelligent Leadership, right? Heart, mind, and soul. Ignite, cultivate, polish. Heart, mind, and soul every single day. That book came out. It was literally a rewrite of Success Yourself. Just with more experience, more research. That book became a global bestseller. How about that? Never gave up. I knew that book had a lot of good stuff in it. And then, wrote another book on culture in 2016, wrote another book in 2019, just came out with another book in 2022. So listen, everybody, why do I say it? I say it because I say it humbly. I don't do it. I do it to move the needle of the world. Period, end of story. Another thing I'm going to be very honest with all of you. You're probably seeing something that is kind of interesting. I'm showing something here tonight to all of you, which is going to be a very important thing to all of you. Are you noticing the vulnerability here? Are you noticing I'm sharing openly, authentically? About what? My soul. Setbacks, failures, the importance of raising your hand and saying, I need help. It is more complex now than ever. And it's going to continue to be very, very complex. There's no human being in the world who can navigate this world by themselves. So be very, very open to making that decision. To be vulnerable. It is a conscious decision that you either make or you don't make. I will say this, if you choose not to be vulnerable, you're done. You're done. You're not going to achieve what you were put on you to achieve. If you do make the decision to be vulnerable, it's the greatest decision that you can make as a human being. Why? Because it's courageous to do so. It's courageous to go to people and say these. Do you have some thoughts that you can share with me? I got a challenge that I'd like to run by you, right? And be open to perspective and feedback and input from others. Friends, do not be afraid to go to people and show that vulnerability, and showing heart, showing soul. Right? We need to do more of that. We live in a technology world. Have you noticed this? Technology. I do a speech in Las Vegas 2 weeks ago, 8,000 people in attendance. It's a technology conference. They bring me in to do the closing keynote. They want me to share a message that's going to be a little bit different than all these great technologists from the world of insurance have been listening to. For 5 days, they said, John, you got to deliver a different message on the last day. So I took a risk. I take the stage, and I said, I want you to be proud of all the advancements that you were making in this industry. What a beautiful industry, transformative, disruptive in a positive way. And I said, you should be proud of the advancements on AI. How many people with the AI, right? Predictive analytics. This is all great stuff. All great stuff. I said, you should all give yourself a round of applause. Everybody stands up, they give themselves a round of applause, and I said, sit down. Let me share something with you. Technology is important. It is a predictor. But there's other predictors that are much more important, that will absolutely determine your sustainability as a person, as a leader, as an organization. I don't care what size company is in the audience. I took a risk. I said, listen, here's the leading indicators that will determine sustainability. Leadership. To what degree are you bringing to your world, your families, your teams, the organization that you work for, your community? To what extent are you holding yourself to a really high standard around leadership and touching hearts, minds, and souls? Are you doing that when you put your head on the pillow at night? Are you asking yourself the question, am I delivering leadership to the level that I'm capable of? And I see the eyeballs looking at me, just like you. You're saying, what's this guy talking about? And then I said, here's the second predictor, talent. Talent. Organizations that have the best talent win. Period. End story. Sports teams that have the best talent win. Talent. Families that are the best families in the world. You know what they do? They cultivate talent. Because every kid's different, right? Culture. What kind of culture do you have? Culture is a big time predictor. There's a lot of companies out there that say, hey, let's go do what Disney does. You know, let's go copy what Disney does, and we'll have this beautiful culture. It's not what we do. Culture is just like your fingerprints, unique, right? Unique. You can't go grab a culture, right? Everybody wants to go grab a culture. No, you gotta create a culture, and you gotta polish that culture in support of your operating imperative, right? Anybody in the room ever read the Jim Collins book called Good to Great? Came about 20 years ago. I'm dating myself here, but let me tell you what, if you haven't read the Jim Collins book, Good to Great, you should. Only 20 years ago, Jim Collins wrote this incredible book, research-based. Here are the companies that that are going to be around for years. You know why? Because they do great stuff. 20 years. And if you go back to that book that was just 20 years ago, a lot of those companies do not exist today. How quickly, right? Things can evaporate. 1997, Steve Jobs came back to Apple. He was 40 years old. 40. He left the first time at 25. Think about that. Think of what he accomplished at 25. He went away 15 years, comes back at 40, 1997. Takes the stage in Cupertino, California. And he says these exact words. By the way, Steve Jobs was a great speaker. You know why he was a great speaker? It wasn't that his IQ was 180. It wasn't that. Go watch the videos of Steve Jobs. You're going to notice something. When he spoke, you know what literally came out was his heart. His heart came out. He was not rehearsed ever. He was prepared, but it all came from where? His soul. That's why people loved his aura when he spoke and he moved on the platform. Very, very moving. Steve Jobs, I will tell you flat out, had an amazing heart. You know what his problem was? Just like what I see all over the world. He didn't know how to go in, grab the heart, pull it out, and show it to human beings authentically. He didn't do it enough. In fact, I'll tell you right now, if he was here today, because I know what he said to me. What he said to me was, if I had a chance to do it over again, the opportunity to work with somebody like you in my 30s and 40s, I would have ended up being a better father, a better husband, and a better leader. Steve Jobs, if he was here today, I know what he would say. He would say, listen, Regents University, students, I was a pretty good leader, pretty good. I was not the best that I could be. I get chills when I say that. Another example, right, of somebody who created a beautiful masterpiece that could have been a better masterpiece. Interesting. So, interesting, 1997, he takes the platform, and there's great anticipation because they're saying, what's he going to say? This is what he said. He said, listen, our success at Apple has absolutely nothing to do with the computer. And the reactions that I'm getting right now is exactly what people have to think. What's he talking about? What's he talking about? It's not about it. We're a computer company. He said, no, our success at Apple has everything to do with our customers. Customers. It's all about our customers. Here's how we're going to achieve success with our customers. Leadership. Leadership. We're going to cultivate in Apple great leadership at the senior level, mid-level manager. We are going to create leadership. We're going to assemble the best talent, and we're going to build a culture. So it's interesting how many, and what I said earlier, right? The leading indicators being leadership, talent, and culture. Steve Jobs said that in 1997. Now you get all these consultancies like Mercer, so on and so forth, that do the research studies very clearly. It comes down to leadership, talent, and culture. So that day, he unveiled a campaign called the Think Different campaign. He actually created that campaign. And the Think Different campaign was really important because it was all about him sharing a message that would be transformative. And there are certain messages I want all of you to leave with tonight. And the first one is, I really hope that when you leave here today, you're non-negotiable around this tenet that I call thinking differently, thinking big. The ability to think differently and think big is going to be significant for each and every one of you. You're going to leave here. You're going to get roles and jobs and so on and so forth, and you got to do your thing, right? You get hired into a role, and you got to execute at a really high level and impress people, right? But in the end, ultimately, the extent to which you understand the concept, you embrace it, you internalize it, you roll on around getting out of your comfort zone strategically, and you pick your spots. Not being disruptive, not being difficult, but absolutely blowing up comfort zones. As you progress in your life, in your career, is going to be of paramount importance for all of you. Do not get stuck. There are many, many people who get stuck in their comfort zones because they associate wrongly, right, that the comfort zone actually yields more pleasure than actually disrupting comfort zones that can yield more pleasure for themselves, teams, family, and so on and so forth. So, there are certain mindset triggers that are critical for all of us. And the first mindset trigger is to believe in the tenet of thinking differently and thinking big. How do you do that? Let me pose that question here. What are some things that you can do to constantly push the envelope for yourself that encourages you to step out of your comfort zone and think differently and think big? What are some things that you can do right now that will move you in that direction? Anybody?
To surround yourself with people that are more successful than you,
Absolutely.
that try to be more than they are now.
Surround yourself with people who are more exceptional than you. And that takes certainly, vulnerability to be able to do that. But very, very good point. Excellent. Thank you. Anybody else? What else can you do? Yes, sir.
Public speaking, it's very important to see maybe go to public speaking classes or improve your public speaking. Like, for example, what you're doing right now, it's very hard to get in front of an audience and speak and give advice to people. So I always say, public speaking classes will be useful.
Wonderful, wonderful point. First of all, round of applause over here. I think you made an excellent point back there. What else can you do? What else? How do you become a big thinker? What are some other things? Yes?
I think trying new things, getting out of that comfort zone is probably a big one because if you can't see a problem, then you can't solve it.
Absolutely. Excellent point. Round of applause back here. So what I've learned working with some really incredible human beings is all of these things. I think these are all valid points. What about reading? Like just taking time, right, to get out of the rhythm that we're all in, because we're all really, really busy. And taking the time to read, and it's interesting. Some of the top CEOs in the world that I've worked with don't even read business books, actually. They do read them, but they like to read history books. History. Why history? Anybody? Kind of interesting. What does reading history books do to enable you to kind of think differently and think big? Yes?
History repeats itself.
History repeats itself. History is a great teacher, right? Appreciation for the hard work that people who came before you did, right? To lay the foundation for the successes that you have now. So it teaches the appreciation, right? Excellent point. So reading, taking time out to reflect, prayer, all of that is really important. Asking yourself the really big questions, right? The really, really big questions. Here's one question, kind of weird when you're really young, but it is still a very important question to ask. Here it is. Why am I on the earth? Okay, there it is. There's the question, right? And it's a worthy pursuit. Not that you're going to come up with an answer at a young age, but going in that direction will yield positive things for you. What's the vision, the essence of the person or leader? Not that I want to become, because everybody wants stuff, right? Want's kind of selfish, right? It's more about what's the vision of the essence of the person or leader I must become. I gotta hold myself. See what I'm doing here? I want to hold myself to a higher standard. Why? Because I have a responsibility. I have an accountability to others. Because that accountability goes back to what I started with today, which is leadership's all about what? Are you touching hearts, minds, and souls every single day? That's your homework, by the way. When you go to bed tonight and you put your head on the pillow, you need to ask yourself, did I touch hearts, minds, and souls in a positive way today? Every single day. Every day. We're humans. We're going to have days where we don't do it very well. Correct? So you need to admit that before you go to sleep. Isn't this exciting? Isn't this fun to think about? Our lives as human beings is a function of we act on the world. We try to make things happen. Most people try to make things happen selfishly. Man, good stuff's happening to me. But it's not about you. It's not about you, ever. It's only about others. You know, how many people do you know run around and they search for happiness, right? How many people in the world wake up in the morning and they say, when am I going to find happiness? You know people like this? There's a lot of people run around and actually have deluded themselves into thinking happiness is an external phenomenon. Right? It's something to go after. You got to go after happiness. Hey, John, when you wake up tomorrow, go after happiness. Just go. Go find it. And let me tell you what, you're never going to find it. It's never going to happen. You know why? You know where happiness is? It's not out there. Right here. Right here. It's right here. It's right here. It's always been here. 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 So the answer to happiness is kind of interesting. Let's make other people happy. How about that? When you wake up in the morning, your purpose is to make other people happy. Companies that have high engagement scores have managers where they create a culture where they are driven to make human beings happy. So how do you make others happy? This is how you make others happy. Courtesy. Heart. Soul. Compassion. Empathy. The value of altruism. You see what I'm doing here? We don't have enough of this at all. Why? We got technology. We got a skewed distribution on IQ. Don't get me wrong, I love IQ. I got some IQ. Not 180. But it's okay. It's good enough. You see what I'm saying? Here's the more important thing. So, are you touching me? Are you giving people goosebumps? That's what I want you to think about. Are you giving goosebumps? That's our job. Every day is to give a boost. You want people leaving conversations with you saying, believe that person. Believe what they just said. How many people believe in aura? You know aura, A-U-R-A? Incredible. Energy. You can tell people who have aura. They walk into a room and it's like, wow. We need leaders. You. Each and every one of you. Don't ever take a conversation for granted. Ever. Every conversation that you have with any human being who walks the planet Earth is special. Special. You can learn something from every human being who walks the planet Earth All you got to do is open up. You can learn from everybody. You can learn from children who are 2 years old. You just got to be vulnerable. You got to make the decision to be vulnerable. Which, by the way, counteracts the ego, right? Ego is tenet number one. You got to believe in yourself. All of you. You must, non-negotiable. As you move through your lives, you ain't going to get nothing done unless there's a deep belief and conviction in your soul that you can accomplish great things. This journey is not going to be overnight. But committing to that journey is worthy. It's worthy work. And the more experiences that you have, the courage that you have to break out of your comfort zones, where you experience something that's a positive, that positive hits your soul. It's a reference, right? So when you encounter tough things and setbacks, you look back in and you say, you know something? I got some negatives in here, but I got some positives. I can rely on those positives to help me think deeper about my belief to accomplish great things. Vulnerability counteracts ego. So I work with a lot of executives who have the overactive ego. Big time. Sometimes narcissism. Big time. So what do I need to teach them? I don't teach them a thing. Isn't that the irony of executive coaching? It's always a partnership. We were having a conversation before the session today. It's always about a partnership. You know, if I can create an environment with people that's special, special space, special, where nobody in the world that I'm working with or talking to is more important than you. Nobody. I can be really busy. My client can be really busy. Just think about this when you talk. How things end up being kind of surface. How many people would be willing to raise their hand and say, I admit to that I have a lot of conversations that are kind of surface. Please, be courageous, raise your hand. Everybody's hand should be going up. Because we're human beings. Right? Nothing wrong with us. Right? We raise our hand and we say, kind of surface. Hold yourself to a higher standard. Hold yourself to a higher standard. Before you have conversations with people, be real, be authentic, be an incredible listener. Don't be looking at the cell phone. What we got to do is we got to lock in, and we got to be vigilant, and we got to connect. And I want this person saying, oh, this person, I've never met anybody like this before. But I'm not looking you down. You know what I'm saying? You get a feeling, I care about you, right? That's leadership. Ultimately, if I can touch and give you goosebumps, heart, mind, and soul, do you feel better? It feels better. How do you feel better? Because I feel better too. You see, now I'm happy. Happiness has never been an external phenomenon. It's in you. Just see it. It's there. Just look inside. Just look inside. It's okay. Right? So, mindset. There's an algorithm. You know what the algorithm is? Here it is. Thoughts control emotions, emotions behavior, behavior results. That's the algorithm. It's very simple. You want great results? You better think right. Because you know good thinking and beliefs that you can accomplish great things. You know what happens? It generates feelings and emotions and passion, exhilaration, excitement. Emotions do not come from anywhere other than positive thinking. and a deep conviction and belief in your soul that you can accomplish big time stuff. And when you experience really positive emotions, you know what happens? Good things. In general, you're much more productive. You act on the world, you make things happen, you're a problem solver, right? Problem solver. And lo and behold, you increase the probability of great results. If you don't believe me, just work backwards. Just work backwards. And look at situations where you didn't accomplish good results. And then ask yourself, what were the behaviors that you exhibited that led to that bad result? Right? Write that down. What were the feelings? And then ultimately, ask yourself, what was the decision that I made that was not optimal? Thank you. So you can see now why I look so good, right? Because I lose calories when I speak. You know, it's like I'm probably dropping 7 pounds here. Thank you. Speaking sense. Kind of weird, isn't it? Now. And those of you, when you enter the business world, you have your own businesses. It's going to be your job, not only for you to embrace that algorithm, but to teach it to your people. And when you become a parent in a family, you have an obligation to teach it to your children. The algorithm that will mitigate risk going forward and increase the probability of success. The algorithm is very, very special. The greatest leaders in the world understand it. That's why the greatest leaders in the world, they have people on their teams who go through walls for them. We don't have enough of that. Think differently, think big. Make a decision to be vulnerable. Don't be afraid to go to people and ask for help. Number 3. As you grow as young people, and get in the world, it's going to be vitally important, very crystallized on your differentiators, your gifts, your strengths. What separates you out from other people. And guess what? I can see from all of you, you got a lot of gifts and strengths that are exciting. Are you excited about the future? Are you excited about the future? You should be excited about the future. All of you accomplish beautiful things, but you will accomplish more when you're really clear about what separates you out versus other people. And that will take some time. Don't be too quick to get crystallized. Experience a lot of things. A lot of things. You're going to get a lot of feedback, right? From managers. And you may not get along with these human beings, right? And you got to be really tough. Just keep in mind the notion that, hey, guess what? In the end, if I can embrace and execute these tenets around, number 1, thinking differently, thinking big. Number 2, being open to feedback. It is tough to get feedback. Show of hands, tough, right? We have a choice with feedback. We always have a choice to accept it or reject it. If you reject feedback, you do lose an important choice. You see what I'm saying? So therefore, the really smart people in the world have no problem going up and bring it on. I want feedback. In fact, I teach that to executives to go to their teams at the right point and say, listen, I want to share something with you. I've learned something. I want to thank you, all of you, for giving me the feedback to help me become the best leader that I can be. I now realize, think about a CEO saying this to their team. I now realize that the only way for me to become the best that I can be and the best for our whole organization is through you. And so therefore, I'm going to share today what I've learned. And I need your input. Forever. Vulnerability is very scary because you're showing your heart, but it is a courageous decision. And guess what? Vulnerability is the igniter to learning and growth. Think about that. Why do you learn and why do you grow? You learn and you grow because you relented. You raised your hand and say, hey, guess what? I know a lot of stuff, but I don't know everything. You see, right? So I'm going to make that decision. You know what's interesting is I've been to 53 countries in the world. And I'm always amazed when I see parents interacting with children anywhere in the world. You know, parents in general want really good things for their children. Doesn't matter where they live. And parents teach children to be vulnerable. And why? Because they know that when my child is vulnerable, they're going to be open to learning and growing. And then what happens is, as people get older, and they enter the corporate world, all of a sudden the vulnerability stuff kind of shuts down. It's interesting, right? We got to flip that. And that's up to you. The talented young people I'm looking at here today, that's up to you. Please, work really, really hard the rest of your life to find the gifts and strengths that separate you out. You have gifts and strengths that other people don't. You wouldn't be on this earth if that was not true. It's interesting, isn't it? You know a lot of people never find their gifts and strengths, ever. They approach their gifts and strengths, but they never really get differentiated. I also have another message for all of you, which is when you find your gifts and strengths, be very proud of your gifts and strengths. Why? Because they yield for you. They make you who you are. There are so many people out there who dismiss their strengths. Don't ever dismiss your strengths. Be proud of your differentiators. Be humble. Be humble. Be quietly confident. You know what I'm saying? You go home at night and you say, boy, I'm good. You say it to yourself. You know what I'm saying? You say it to yourself, I'm incredible. Right? But when you're out in the world, you're humble. You're humble. Right? That's where the vulnerability decision keeps you in check. There's always a counteract. Believe in yourself. Deep conviction. Go after it. Be driven to accomplish beautiful things. Make the decision to be vulnerable. Be proud of your gifts and strengths. Commit every single day to polishing those gifts and strengths. Polish. For professional athletes, I work with a few of them. Professional athletes are very special human beings. Actually, anybody who gets to top of a career is very special. Here's a big separator. The best of the best, they commit to making their strengths stronger tomorrow than they are today. You see what I'm saying? Why? Because I can mitigate risk with my strengths going forward. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. But guess what? I'm going to rely on my gifts and strengths. Organizations, companies, same thing. Simultaneously, be very aware of your gaps and your weaknesses. What either are holding you back or can hold you back. How are we doing on time? Okay. Everybody with me? Everybody still hanging with me? So, listen, think differently, think big. Make the decision, be wrong. These are all mindset triggers. Mindset, right here. Commit. Isolating your gifts. Polishing your gifts. You've got gaps. Work on those gaps. Close those gaps. Create a strategy. All of you need to wake up every day with a strategy around how do I leverage my gifts and how do I address my gaps. Think about that every day, especially when you get out there and get a job. Execute. Passion. Pride. Precision. You see what I'm saying? You act on the word, you make stuff happen. Put your head on the pillow at night, calibrate. How did I do? Did I touch hearts, minds, and souls? Right? You may have said something to somebody that backfired. Have the courage to know that person and say backfired. I didn't mean what I said. That kind of stuff, right? We got to calibrate. It's very interesting. There's a parallel here. It's very interesting. Here's the parallel. If you look at, and some of you can be entrepreneurs or whatever your passion is, go after it. But what's really interesting is that there's a parallel universe here. And here's the parallel universe. Every organization in the world has a mission, vision, purpose. That mission, vision, purpose always gets retranslated into what? Strategy. Right? That strategy gets executed. As it's executed, you know what the company has? The company has vigilance built in, right? They read the data, they get the customer feedback, right? Why? Why? Because it leads to course correction and so on and so forth. That's how we operate as human beings. The best people in the world operate. What's my vision? What's my purpose? What is my core purpose? You know what Steve Jobs' core purpose was? I was put on the earth to put a dent in the universe. That was his core purpose. Let me repeat that. Because, when I repeat it, I get chills. I was put on the earth to put a dent in the universe. It's massive. Massive. And he did. It starts here. It's my vision. It's your vision for yourself. It's got to be not concrete. You're still young. You got a lot to experience here. But ultimately, it should be about some of the stuff we've been talking about, right? Never a selfish pursuit. Never. Never selfish. Your ultimate vision for yourself is altruism. Altruism. Worthy achievement. Are you doing things that are moving the world in a positive direction? Are you building relationships with people that are beyond just, hey, I got a friend, right? No, I want you to hold yourself to a really high standard. Ask yourself this: how many real bonds do I have with people in my life? You know the word bond, B-O-N-D? This is a bond, right here. Okay? Bonds are not easy to create. They're very, very difficult to break. You know why? A lot of work goes in to creating bonds. I'll share with you my wife, Gail, married 44 years, known her for 50 years. This is it right here. Everybody with me on this? Can't be broken. Can't. We got to hold ourselves, all of us, to a much higher standard. Relationships called affiliation. We have a gap in the world. It's not this. It's all the other stuff that I'm talking about. And we've got to be able to manage ourselves. Self-leadership. Are you building bonds with people? Are you touching hearts, minds, and souls? Are you giving goosebumps to people? Every conversation, they leave and they say, wow, that person just moved me. Are you moving people? Moving people, actually moving people. People say, wow, I could be around that human being. We've got a massive gap in the world of leadership. We have no shortage of intellect to skew distribution. But if you look at leadership, it's not skewed. That distribution is lagging. You can solve it. You can. Not me. I'm 66. I got more work to do, trust me. Not done yet. Not done. But I will commit to all of you until I die. I'm going to be on a mission to make the world a better place. And all of you, I want you to join with me. Are you with me on this? This is a worthy pursuit. We can change the world. And the answer is, we need better leaders. And that is you. A couple more things, everybody, and then we'll wrap it up. Hang in there, hang in there, right? Okay. Think differently, think big. Everybody got that concept, right? Number 2, vulnerability decision. Number 3, gifts. What are your gifts? Be crystallized as time goes on. Be proud of those gifts. Always be aware of your weaknesses. And by the way, in this very disruptive world, here's the scary thing. You can actually have weaknesses that you don't see. Because everything comes from the inside. If your thinking patterns are off, and your character's off, and your values are off, that's inner core. If you've got a messed up inner core, guess what? You've got a messed up outer core. That's what the world sees. When people look at people and they say, that's a bad person. Bad people come from bad inside. There's an algorithm here. So here's the scary thing. But it's also an opportunity for each and every one of you to be very diligent and vigilant as you continue in your careers, to be aware that weaknesses and gaps may not be materializing right now. They may not be spilling in the outer core. People may not see the bad stuff yet. But with change and stress and disruption, and you get into your lives and you have setbacks, and maybe your children, may not be doing good in school, right? I mean, this is real life that happens, right? And you're doing great stuff in your career, but you got challenges in your home life, right? Let me tell you what. Those, just like cholesterol, cholesterol is good and bad. You got good cholesterol, bad cholesterol. You go to the doctor and the doctor says, hey, your bad cholesterol scores up. They're going to ask you a couple questions. They're going to say 2 things. One is, talk to me about the eating habits, right? And then they're going to ask you about stress, because stress absolutely drives up bad cholesterol. So it's the same thing in our lives. In our soul, there's bad cholesterol. And there's good cholesterol too. And I've seen many, many people in their zone have this bad cholesterol that lurking deep. And then literally when stress happens, right, boom, it comes out. And that's when bad things happen. So listen, you want to mitigate that risk, because all of you've got incredible potential to accomplish beautiful things in your life. So be vigilant and diligent on those things. Execute with passion. Last couple points. The importance of locking in. Remember I did that little walk with you? We gotta be vigilant. It's tough nowadays though, isn't it? Because we're busy, right? People get busy. And so we say something and we may not be attentive to reaction that we're creating in others. As we go forward, all of you, be vigilant to the reactions that you generate in others. Take time out to say, I just said something to somebody, and we just kind of read the cues here, right? Because ultimately, that's the foundation for what's called course correction, and how important it is for all of us as we continue in life to be nimble. You know the word nimble, right? We gotta be nimble, we gotta read, we gotta adjust. And if I was gonna make one prediction for all of it, and I got one more thing to say about this. The word agility, you know the word agility? There's three components. Number one, are you learning agile? As you look at your career, your life, in the next 15, 20, 25, whatever years, the extent to which you commit to being agile and hungry to learn, that is going to be a very positive predictor for all of you. Does that make sense? Continue to grow and learn. Number two, be very, very agile around change. The ability to read change and adjust to it and embrace it and see the worthy elements of change. And being open to disruption is going to be a very, very important thing for all of us. And number three, relationship agility. And the whole notion of really ultimately it comes down to really treating people, not so much the way you want to be treated, but treating people what? Somewhat close, but think about this. The notion of, hey, let's treat people the way we want to be treated. Actually, not too sure about that. Actually, what we want to do is we want to treat people the way they want to be treated, which is what? Reading people. Because if I'm dealing with somebody very direct, if you're negotiating with somebody really direct and you're indirect, you're not. There you go. When you deal with somebody very direct, you need to be direct. When you're dealing with somebody who's relationship oriented, you need to move in that direction. You see what I'm saying? So agility is going to be really important. My last point for all of you is a mindset of privilege. And I started today with all of you saying that I was very privileged to be with all of you today. And I want to come back to that. And I want to thank Arietta and the team here for the privileged opportunity to be with all of you and spend some time. All of you are going to accomplish amazing things in your professional and your personal lives. You believe that, right? Do you believe it? You should believe it. The world's in a beautiful place because of the incredible talent that's here. It's been my privilege, from the depths of my soul, to be with all of you. You have touched my heart. You have touched my mind, you've touched my soul. And I hope I've done the same for you. Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mattone. Thank you everybody for being here today. And we're now going to proceed to the NAP gallery with the focus group. Whoever has some questions for Mr. Mattone, they can ask him now. If anyone has a question that they would like to ask him.
Yeah, so we're just having a short Q&A now, so. What do you personally think about religion in this context?
So you can probably tell that a big part of my philosophy, which has evolved in the last 11 years, is called intelligent leadership. And I kind of sprinkled some of it in here with all of you. I would say, listen, I'm religious, okay? Catholic is my religion. I would say, though, you probably experience more spirituality here in my talk without really even talking about religion. So I've talked all over the world, and I can tell you it's really interesting. I get that question every now and then. It doesn't matter where I am in the world. People in the Middle East, for example, the Muslim religion, I can't tell you how many people have said, John, it's incredible. Do you know Muslim religion? I don't know the Muslim religion. You know? So there's elements of spirituality that I think cuts across all religion. And so I don't really talk about it. I just kind of hit those spiritual elements, and if I can hit somebody and make a difference, that's really all I care about. I hope that helps. You bet. Thank you.
Yes, I want to ask you how you would guide us to go about finding our purpose in such a language.
So actually, it's an excellent question. It's worthy to do it at a relatively young age, but don't go too deep, okay? I actually created a couple proprietary tools that I utilize in my executive coaching work with people who, you know, are older, right? Who are pretty deep, you know, just as a result of all their experiences. Now, short of that, you want to read as much as you can about, you know, maybe grab a couple of my books, whatever. But let me tell you what, Stephen Covey. You know the name Stephen Covey? Okay, you got to read Stephen Covey. So Stephen Covey wrote a book years ago called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. See, that's a phenomenal book. You can start there because in that book, and even a couple of my books, I get you into that area of asking questions that enable you to go pretty deep, but not too deep. You know, because ultimately you really need somebody to kind of guide you through it. So that's where I will start. I hope that helps. Thank you.
Do you think everyone is born a leader, or not everybody is designed like in a way to become a leader? If so, is it okay that not every single person like achieves this like leadership level and maybe acts as in a different like with a different purpose?
It's an excellent question. I believe that some people are born with a predisposition to bring, let's call leadership and aura along the lines that we've been talking about. Those individuals who were not born with that DNA are still capable of, because all these concepts are really applied to yourself, you know. So part of building yourself into a leader and growing yourself as a leader is really honestly tied into these mindset triggers, you know what I'm saying, and executing the triggers. And you may not have a team, you know, you may not be running a company, but you can still accomplish great things as a leader. I believe that leadership, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if I didn't believe that we could all grow as leaders ourselves. Thank you.
My question is, in an Arab context, it's important to note out what context or environment it is, because the Arabs are going to be societies very hierarchical. I chair a group of people that are all way older than me, and I find because of that, mainly, a certain level of not active but passive friction, which is not necessarily meant to be. You know, everyone is absolutely great, but still, that cultural aspect is still there. So I wonder, perhaps from an assertive leadership point of view, or in general, how can I deal with such a situation from your own experiences? Is there a way I can use that for my own benefit, instead of trying to face it, to embrace it? Thank you.
Yeah, so in that part, it's kind of interesting. So, very interesting story, actually. So a few years ago, I was building out, I got a whole process around coaching, and I teach all over the world, right? So back in like 2012, I had a lot of coaches saying to me, John, your philosophy and your process will never work in the Middle East, ever. Because it relies on kind of breaking down that hierarchy, right? Being vulnerable, right? So on and so forth. So the last couple of years, if you look at the CEOs who have worked with me, 50% of them are from the Middle East. Now, something's going on, okay? What I've experienced is, and I totally agree with you, I think it's a tougher road, no question, but you can't ever force people to embrace vulnerability. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of trying that. I think, if you try to negotiate and do work in the Middle East, if you're trying to get people to, if you're trying to force them to do, you're gonna break down negotiations. Same thing as a coach. I have found a way to kind of have inflection points along the way where my clients begin to see the decision, like we've all been talking about here today, right? Which is there's benefits to making that decision to be vulnerable. But if you force it, you're going to create resistance. But if I can show them iteratively, right, that there is a massive benefit to be accrued individually and collectively by not only making that decision, but living it, I got it. So I don't know if I'm answering your question. I know this though. Keep doing what you're doing, okay? I think it's great that you're doing this because you're going to grow from this experience. Continue to pepper in some of what we talked about tonight around, thinking differently, thinking big, role model listening, and embracing ideas. Right? The more you do that, the more you role model that, people gonna benefit greatly from that. That's pretty high level. We have to talk more, but that's a general what I'm saying. Okay, thanks.
Last question.
Hello, my question is, instead of being a leader, like if you're part of a team, what is the best system to behave when you're part of a team instead of being a leader?
I think you've got to be a complementary piece. I think you, in situations when you're on a team, whatever role that you're in, whatever role that is, you've got to make sure that you're executing at a really high level. You might have to execute in areas that are not your gifts. That's okay, because ultimately, right, it's still going to yield for you, but the best teams are complementary in nature, right? And so always look for ways where you can provide value and input and perspective that others can't. And if you don't know where to go, do your research, right? And just keep clawing away at making a difference. That's what I would say.
And would you say that it's a good idea, like, to bring out your heart even if you're a compliment to a piece? Like, show your own passion.
I would say that you gotta find what is your heart for you. Because when I do it, it's different. As long as you're real. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of fuzzy, isn't it? Authentic. Real. Don't be afraid to share your opinion professionally. Here's what I think. Here's some reasons why. Number one, number two, number three. Show respect, right? As you share your opinion. Make sure that you never apologize. A lot of people will, hey, you don't mind me bringing this up, right? And soon you're done. As soon as you say, I apologize for bringing this up. So those are things that can actually amp up your aura and accomplish, I think, some good things for you. I hope that helps.
Well, yes. On behalf of the student union, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Here's a little gift.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much.
I just want to very quickly advertise the Global Entrepreneurship Week we have in the middle of November. Very soon we will start promoting the events, but one of them is the Regent's Den. You may know Franklin's Den, and it's the same concept. Some of you have a paper leaflet on the information. And yeah, follow our Instagram, as always. And now we have the focus group, and there's still a few spots left. So if you want to, please come and inform me, and then we will move to the Nat Gallery. And otherwise, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you so much.